So welcome back. We will carry over from where we left on last, which was we are basically discussing functions and how we can work with functions. So today I want us to look at how we can work with conditions, and especially it's still part of functions, but it's going to be a little bit different because now we're going to use functions and we're going to use if, and then probably maybe after that we can proceed to how we can clean up the data that we have. So we had looked at scalar functions yesterday, and we said they're functions that work on a particular cell, and we looked at aggregate function, and we said they work on a particular range, and we looked at examples of both of them. I won't belabor so much on that today, but since it's something that we had already handled, we just looked at that. But today I want us to look at something different, which is the if statement, and this is important because again, when you're doing or we're checking for patterns, the if is going to play a very important role in this. Now, let's say, for example, we have some values here, and we want to check whether somebody is eligible or not. So maybe I have name here, and I have country here, and I have age here, and simply have eligible, where I can put yes or no, and maybe have like Richard, Mark, and Paul, and Mary, something of that sort. Mark here. Maybe this is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Uganda, Tanzania. Well, I need to remove the Y and maybe say South Sudan. And probably maybe this is 18, 21, 16, 24, something of the sort. Now, if you have something like this, something like a list that you have gotten from a system somewhere, and somebody asks you to check for eligibility, and maybe for eligibility, you're just checking if the age is 18 only. So maybe what you could do is this: you write an if statement to check if this value is 18, and if that is the case, then you will be able to put yes, otherwise you would put no. So I'll put something like this. So I'll say if, which is the condition that we're checking, and I'll say this value here, I'll use point method from this point moving on, is equals to 18. Then I'll put another comma, the value if that is true. So I'll put this is yes or y, otherwise I'll put n or no, something of the sort. So the thing is, I'll put if as a function, then I'll open bracket, then I'll put the condition or the logical test that I'm performing, then I'll put a comma, value when that condition is true, otherwise value when that condition is false. So something of that sort. So this way, it will be able to tell me, yes, they are eligible, and if I copy the formula downwards, you can see, well, I said 18, I should have said greater than 18. So if A is greater than 18, is greater than or equal to 18, that should be the correct test. Then it should be able to tell me yes. So you can see it gives me yes for all of them except this one who is 16. Okay, so that's an example of how we can use the if statement. So it's if there's the logical test of the condition, then value if that condition is true, otherwise if the value is false. But then there could be other things, like for example, you're checking first of all if they are from Kenya and they're above 18, then they're allowed. Otherwise, if they're not from Kenya, so long as they're 18, then they are allowed. Okay, so that can also be a condition that you might want to check. Sorry, I'll leave that. So I don't know if there's any question about this because it's going to be very important, especially writing this condition over here. So if, then your logical test, then value if that logical test is true, otherwise value when that logical test is false. Okay? Are we together? Are we together? Or you lost me? Yeah, okay. Sometimes I don't know about my internet, so sometimes I may be speaking alone. That's why I will constantly keep on checking with us. Now, that if sometimes might not be very straightforward as I have written it. Sometimes you might want to test for more than one condition. So, for example, first of all, I check if you're from Kenya. If you're from Kenya, then you must be 18. Otherwise, the rest of the South African countries, I'll simply return no if they I'll simply return yes or whether they are 18 or not. So only Kenyans must be above 18. The rest of the East Africans can attend whether they are 18 or not. So how will I write that? I'll put it like again, if, then I'll say, first of all, I'll check for the country, if it is Kenya. So if that is true, what do I check? I'll check if, again, you can see another if, then I'll check if this age is greater than or equal to 18. Then if that is the case, then I'll return yes, others will return no. But then you realize I have two conditions. I've only dealt with this portion on the inside. So I have the outer if, which is only checking for the condition, and this will only test when it is Kenya. What will happen if the country is not Kenya? Then I will be forced to come and put another condition here and say I want to simply return yes if they are from East Africa. Something of that sort. So you can see here I have two things. I have this outside if, probably maybe I can type this on capital letters so that they are the same. I have this outside if, which checks if they are from Kenya. If they are from Kenya, this entire condition here will execute. All right. Now, if they're not from Kenya, then this is what will execute. So again, maybe we're saying if they're non-Kenyans, well, probably maybe we can run that first and see how that works out. So now you can see Kenya is yes, and when I put that, you can see now the rest are yes. So if I said here something like Kenya and you are 15, so probably you'll see that you're not eligible either way, right? So that's kind of like how this works out. So, but there's also another condition that can say if you're from Kenya, you should be 18. Otherwise, if you're from another country, then you should be 21. So how do we write that? So if you're from Kenya, you're 18. If you're from other countries, then you must be 21. Then what we do here is going to say if, again, I like use capital letters. I'll put country here, is Kenya, like that. Then I'll check if your age, sorry, so I'll say if, then I'll put here your age is greater than or equal to 18, then we will say yes. Otherwise, we will say no. So we'll close the inside if, that's the first condition. Then the other condition would be if, then the other condition, I'll simply just check if your age is greater than or equal to 21, then yes, otherwise, no. Something like that. So with this one now, of course, that is the inside if. Then of course I have now the entire if, because remember this is this if, this is this if, and then this outside bracket is for the entire if. So usually you need to make sure that you've closed the brackets properly. So each and every if must have its own closing brackets. So again, I'll write this one in capital letters so that they are uniform. So when I press that one, I'll have yes. Then for the rest, I'll have yes for only those ones that are 21. So if this one was 20, then probably it will give me no. If they are 23, it will give me yes, because only 21 people and above or from other countries other than Kenya are allowed. Kenyans is 18 and above. Other East African countries are 21 and above. Okay? How to get up to that point? Now, this is very important because sometimes when you're looking for patterns, these are the kind of things that we'll be doing to look for the pattern that we are looking for, that we're yearning for. In short, I'm trying to say you can have a lot of if statements and you can have what we call nested ifs, so that now we should be able to see how this works out. Okay? So, yes, so that is how ifs work. Now, of course, again, based on the conditions that I've written here, then you could also write them in different ways because we have what we are referring as logical um, conditions. Excel supports logical conditions, and these are just three: there's and, or, and not. So maybe you want to test two conditions. If all of them return true, then you put something. Then you want to test if other two conditions return true, then you return something. A very classic example here, I can just want to return if you're from Kenya and you're 18. So I'll soon put something like and. So this and will mean I can put logical tests together. So the first thing I'll do is I'll check if country is equals to Kenya. Then the other condition, I check if age is greater than or equal to 18. So that will return true or false. So you can see now that returns true. So if I run all the others, you'll see they'll be false because the country is not Kenya and the age is not above 18. Otherwise, if this was Kenya, this will still return true. This will return true, as you can see. All right. So you can still be able to do this where you put and then you put your two conditions. So in short, what I'm trying to say is based on what you've written, if you want to check that you're from Kenya and your age is uh, is is uh, is 18, then you're eligible. Otherwise, if you're from Kenya and you're less than 18, then you are ineligible. So again, you can write that condition like this. So I'll say here if, then I'll say and, then I'll say, of course, this is Kenya. Then I'll say this is greater than or equal to 18. So that if that condition is true, then I'll say yes, you're eligible. Otherwise, I can check the other condition and say again and I'll check if the country is not Kenya, then and of course the age is greater than or equal to 21. So again, if then this should have been if here. Then I would say yes. Then otherwise, I would say no, like that. So I'll put that, and of course, the first condition is, of course, I'll need to close the other bracket because I'm saying if this first condition is true, then I'll say yes. If that condition is not true, then I'll check if the country is not Kenya. This is the other condition. And for this other condition, I'll put that. So this other condition is a prerequisite of this value not returning true. So you can see I've just written the other statement. Just say yes. I think there's one bracket that I was missing. Yeah, there's one bracket that I was missing. So you can see if I put that condition and then I just type this, you can see this is the one that's not going to work because this is from Tanzania and they're not more than 21. Otherwise, if they are something like 25, then it will return yes. So again, you can be able to say that when it comes to writing the condition, it will basically depend on exactly what I'm intending to do. So you can use and or. So sometimes somebody can say, if you're from Kenya or you're 18, then you're allowed. So if you're from Kenya and you're 18, I'll not put and here, I'll put or, because it means either the condition is going to be true. So even if you are 12 years, you can see this still returns yes because you're from Kenya. So the condition is either you're from Kenya or you are more than 18. So this one, if either is true, then it returns yes. Otherwise, if either is false, now if you're from Uganda here and you're 12, then you can say it becomes no. So it means that you must be from Kenya or you're 12 years old. That's the condition that I have given here. This will return true if either of the conditions match. So you can either do and or, especially when you're testing for multiple conditions and you want to check if all of them are returning either true or false. And all the conditions must return true or either of the conditions will return true. Are we together? Are we together to that point? Any question? No question. All right. So I want to give you a small task over here, and I want to see how you will achieve it. Let's assume here you have the minimum score, the maximum score, the grade. So this is how it's going to work. From 0 to 40 to 30, I'll give a fail. From 31 to 40, I'll give a pass. 41 to 50, I'll give a credit. 51 to 60, I'll give upper credit. Then from 61 to 100, I'll give excellent. Now, what I want you to do is I have this. This is the grading table, but then here I have student number. I have named. I have score. Then I have grade. Something like that. So what I want to do is let me ask ChatGPT to generate for me a list of 50 students with marks between, well, I can use, I can use ChatGPT. I think I have it here somewhere. I'll probably tell it to generate for me, generate for me 30 records based on this for marks between 19 and 89. Something like that. Let me see what it does. It should be able to be, it should be good enough. So I just copy this and I'll paste it down here. Well, I can remove this. It's already repeated. Delete. Shift cells up. Then I can remove this grid. So what I wanted to do here is calculate for me the grade. So based on this, I want you to calculate for me the grade for these 30 students. How would you achieve that? How would you calculate the grade for the students? Now, maybe I'll give you like 5 minutes. You try it out, then maybe we can come back and see how to actually achieve this. Now, this is important because when you're talking about data analytics, these are the kind of things that we'll be doing over and over again. Once we extract our data from whichever source it's coming from, then we are trying to look for patterns or we're trying to group it together. These are the kind of things that we'll be doing to make sure that that data matches the threshold for us to analyze it. Okay, so I'll give us like 5 minutes. You look at it, then I can come back and see how you have implemented. So maybe I'll give each and everybody an opportunity to see how you will have implemented it. You can use everything we have done from yesterday, but I think mostly what you've done today with the is that is what would work best in this particular use case. Okay. So 5 minutes, this is 6:21. At 6:26 or 6:25 thereabout, we should have thought about it and probably maybe whoever has a solution can suggest before I give mine. All right. So just look at the grading table and look at the data and try to figure out how we can actually be able to achieve this. Okay. All right. So your time starts now. Okay, I think that is enough time. Anybody with any idea on how we can go about this? There's no wrong answer. It's only the idea that you want to implement. That's what's important. There are more than 3 ways you can achieve this. So any idea is welcome before I give you my solution. I've, I've seen at least 3 ways, 4 actually. I've seen 4 ways that you can actually solve this same problem. So you have more than one way. How many are we in class today? We are like, how many? Um, we are 3, yeah? So how do we achieve this? Well, I'll ask you something like this. So I'll give you something. Uh, I'll give you something like this. So what I'll do is mostly I'll just take the highest value. Say we're talking about 61 to 100 as excellent. So I'll say something like if this grade is greater than 60, then that should give me excellent, right? So that's the condition when it is true. So let me just take this one out a bit, okay? Then what is the other condition? The other condition would be if the grade is greater than, so it's up to 60, so 59, then that should give me upper case. Otherwise, if the score is greater than, in this particular case is 49, I'll give it credit. Wait, it's greater than 60 is excellent. Greater than 50, greater than 50, upper credit. Greater than 40, I'll give it credit. Then, of course, I'll still check if this grade is greater than 30, then I'll give it a pass. Now, in either condition, I'll give it a fail. Then the only thing I need to do is to close the number of brackets that we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll close 4 brackets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you close them, you'll see the color codes are matching. So when I press enter, then you can see that tells me excellent. And if I copy it across, then I'll be able to see whether it gives me the correct grade or not. So you can see I have excellence. Probably this was a mistake here. Delete this. Delete this. Up. Then I can copy this one downwards, and you can see I have a pass. If I pick any like 29, you can see that's a fail. And yes, that works perfectly. So I've only used ifs, and probably maybe let me just make it bigger so that you're able to see how it looks like. So that is how the function works. So I'm just checking if it is greater than 60, it's excellent because you're saying anything above 60 is excellent. If it is greater than 50, if it's greater than 60, then you check if it's greater than 50, which is here, upper credit. If it is greater than 40, which is here, credit. And if it is less than 30, above that here, it's a pass. In either, if it does not meet all those conditions, then it is definitely a fail because it will just test this condition, then this condition, then this condition, then this condition, and if all of them fail, then it resolves to this condition. All right, so that is how I would have achieved. Again, you could have done it the other way around using less than, or you could have used and if you wanted to. So either way, you'll still be able to solve this problem in those many number of ways. So you could use greater than, you could use less than. So for less than, I'll start with less than 30 and say fail. Then I test if it's more than 30. Then I'll check if it's less than 40, less than 50, less than 60, less than, okay, less than 60 we stop. Then I'll be able to plug in the grades as appropriate. The other way I would have achieved this is using and. So I've said if the grade is between 0 and 30, then it's fail. Others, if it's between 40 and 50, then pass. Others, if it's between 41 and 50, credit, and so forth and so forth. So you get the idea. So usually when you're talking about Excel, we're not talking about a single solution. We'll be talking about multiple conditions that would allow us to be able to uh, multiple solutions that will be able to allow us solve the problem that you're dealing with. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, there's usually not a single solution to one particular problem. So long as you have the skill, you can be able to achieve it however you feel it's comfortable. Are we okay to that point? Any question? Any question? Okay, so if there's no question, then you can carry on. Now, I think what we need to do before we clean up our data, I just open up the questions that I've sent so that we can be able to see how we can be able to solve them. So again, we are able to see how these problems, what we can apply to solve these problems to make our work easier in terms of looking for patterns within our data, because that's very, very important for us to achieve. Before we look at our supermarket data, this is very important for us to see. Again, this is just an Excel crash course, just to show us what we need to do when we have data to achieve something with the data, so that now, again, we don't have to go back to the source of the data and trying to, or do some data. We take some data and then we have to apply some manual techniques to be able to, split this data or things like that. Now, one of the things I want us to ask is, you've been given two names like this. How do I split the first name and the last name? So let me give you that challenge. How do you split the first name and the last name? Because I think that's the first, even before we go to our, even before we go to our data, this is very important. If I ask you to show me, to split for me the first name and the last name, how would you achieve it in this particular case, based on what we have learned so far? Any idea from what you learned since yesterday? If I was asked to split the first name and the last name, what I would do is I would look for where the space is. Then I split the two based on where the space is. So for the first name, I'll simply say from the left-hand side of this string, get me the location of a space within the string. That should give me the first name, as you can see. And that would apply for all the names. So you can see that does it correctly, because what I'm simply saying is look for where the space is. So count where you find the space, count those number of characters up to where the space has been found. And just try to show you from what we had learned yesterday, how you can actually use it to work with data without necessarily doing things by hand. Okay. Now, how would you get the last name? Now that I've shown you how to get the first name, how do you get the last name? There is more than one way to do it, and no answer is wrong. But if you had asked me, what I would have done is I would take the first name and replace from the whole name. So since I already have the first name, pick the first name and replace it from the whole name, then I'm left with the last name. So what I would say here is substitute. What am I substituting? I'm substituting from this text. What is the old text? The old text is what is here. And what is the new text? I'm replacing it with blank. As simple as that. And that solves my problem, as you can see. So you can see it's not very difficult to achieve some of these things, so long as we know what functions are there for us and actually how they work. So this is actually very, very important for us to be able to determine. All right, are we together? All right. So, by then, I hope there's no question up to that point, or is there any? So you can see, based on the things that we have done, they would definitely make it very, very easy for us to be able to determine these kinds of data, right? Okay. So, let's go back to the questions that I had shared and see how we can achieve them. So here we have a worksheet and it has the following data. So you have product, we have quantity, and we have total. So I can copy this product quantity and total. Then I'm told the unit price is 50 for all products. So I can pick this and probably add it inside my Excel file here, like that. So did I copy that? I'm not sure. Let me just check. Sorry. I'll copy this. I'll pick this table and copy this and paste it here. Why is it not paste? Okay, so I have it there. So I've been told that the what is it? I've been told that the unit price is 50. The unit price is 50 for all the products. So I'm asked, do you want a formula to calculate the total cost? So if the unit cost is 50, how do I automatically compute the total cost? And how do and I'm told to copy the formula using autofill and explain how the formula changes automatically when copied. So the unit price is 50. So I'll simply say here, unit price, and here it's 50. And of course, I'm told to calculate the total. So the total here should be this multiplied by that, right? That should give me 750. Now, does that mean that if I copy the formula downwards, it works? It does not work. Why? Now, why does this formula not work? Because that's the explanation that you have been asked. Because again, we have the unit price. For the first one, it's working. For the successive one, it's not working. Well, how it's not working is because I have been tasked a very simple thing to explain the difference between relative referencing and absolute referencing. Now, Excel by default copies this data absolutely, or copies the data relatively rather, relatively. But since it is copying the data relatively, that does not mean that is actually how it works. So how it works is that I want this data to be fixed, this value here to be fixed. So what I will do here is I come here and within the, I'll double click to show the formula, and within this E41, I'll press F4 so that I lock that cell. Then I press enter and I copy the formula downwards, then everything works as it should have been the case. So this way now, I only was testing here what is the difference between relative versus absolute cell referencing, and that is the explanation that was required at this particular point. Again, when you're doing analysis, the analytics, those are very important things to see because they'll be able to help us to understand exactly what is going on. Okay? Any question after that? Or I can look at the second one. Let me look at the second one, then I will let you try out the rest so that now you're able to see and understand exactly what's going on here. So for the second question, I've been given marks for students, and the bonus mark is by 10%. So I've been told to enter the formula and copy the formula and identify the relative differences in the formula. So there are two ways you could still achieve this. So copy this, for example. So I'll copy this. Okay. So I'll copy this, I'll bring it down here again. Then if the Cinemax is by 10%, there are two ways I can do this. I could simply say, take this and multiply by 0.1, that's 10%. Then, well, it's not 0.1, but 1.1 because it's 100 plus 10, which is 10%. So that should give me the max like that. So that will be able to work out. And of course, as you copy the formula downwards, it picks. The other way of doing it is to put the percentage here, which is 1.1. And then I'll simply say pick this and multiply by whatever is here, because the percentage can change. If the percentage changes, I don't want everything to change within my formula. Then I'll lock the cell like that. I press enter and then I copy the formula downwards. Now the advantage of using this method is once I change this percentage to maybe say 5%, then everything else adjusts. As opposed to here, where if I was to change this by 5%, then I have to recopy the formula all over again for it to be able to work. So you can see, you can see this second approach here is much easier, because once I change this one, I say apply 20% to it, I'll simply apply 20% and everything else adjusts downwards. All right. All right, so that is how you would actually achieve that. Again, I'm just giving you multiple solutions so that you can be able to see how we can be able to work with these sets of data as we are carrying on. All right, so that's that. We can look at the third question here. I think I'll look at the third one, then I'll let you try out the rest. So the third one is you've been told to create worksheet with the three values, that is month, sales, and commission. And of course, the values are as shown. And you've been told the commission is sales multiplied by 5%. So the task is to calculate commission using formula reclef and then copy it for all the months. So the question here is use relative cell referencing in the formula. So again, I'll just pick the data here. I'll copy it. Then I'll come to my Excel sheet. I can paste it back here like that. Well, I can paste it here like that. So for the commission, it's 5% of the sales. So I'll simply say here it is this multiplied by 5% is 0.05, or you can say 5 divided by 100. Either way, you still end up with the same value. Then you can copy it downwards like that, and you are able to get that commission. That is pretty straightforward and nothing out of it. Again, that's relative, but I think the best would have been to use what do you call this? It's not relative. It's not relative. It's fixed. Absolute. The best would have been to use an absolute rate, which is 5% here, so that I could say the value here would be this multiplied by this commission, and I'll lock that position in using a 4. Then I divide it by 100, something like that. Now, it will still give me the same value. The only thing is that when I change this commission to 10%, then my worksheet adjusts. If I change it to 2.5%, also my data works fast. So that way you'll see that it makes it very, very easy for you to be able to set up some fixed values somewhere. Then you can be able to adjust this data as you move along. Again, it's all a matter of what is it, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. There's no wrong or right answer, because the answer was pretty clear. Just copy the formula, just write the formula using cell referencing and copy it downwards, which is basically what you've done. But I'm just trying to show us when we comes to analytics, some of those fixed values, you want to fix them somewhere and you want to refer to them in such a way that now they're able to, it's able to make it very easy for you to experiment with different values without necessarily changing your formulas up and down. Okay, so maybe I think you can try out the rest of the questions. I think they're not that many. They are probably about how many? they are about, I think they're about if 10 or so, if I'm not wrong. They shouldn't be that many, but of course, they increase in order of, as you go along, sometimes it increases in order of magnitude. So you want to be able to try them out and see how that works out. Now, I'm only showing us this because I want us to understand how working with data is all about. Then from there now, I'll be able to pick the data that we had yesterday, that is um, the supermarket stock data. Then I want us to be able to pick it up and see how we can use the things that we've learned here to clean up that data to come up with some summaries for not some summaries, but to generate data like split names, like remove spaces in names, like set default values and all that kind of stuff prior to starting to look for the patterns within that data. That is the whole point of why I want us to understand exactly how this works out. Okay, so I'll leave you with these questions that I have on the screen here. I want you to try them out the best you can, based on the time to your left. I will share the presentation that you have just looked at today, of course, with the reference video that we are looking at as usual. Then from there, you follow it up and see how well you understand this. And if you don't, the WhatsApp group is open for us. You can reach out anytime. You can ask any questions, so I can be able to explain areas that I feel you might have issues with. Then from there, we can be able to see how to move forward. But what I would encourage you to do is look at this keenly, because it's going to be, or it forms the foundation of how we are going to perform our data analytics. Any question up to that point? I know I am moving not too fast, but a little fast. Is because we are out of time and we need to conclude this. So I'm trying my level best to see how best you can conclude it. So if there's any question, you can ask. I'm still available anyway. You can ask, or you can ask in the group. But I'll stop the recording of the video, but I'll still remain in class just in case there is any question to deal with. And of course, I can be able to share that. I can be able to share what we have done. Okay? So I'll stop the recording, but I'll still remain around.